In a small coastal town, where the sea whispered secrets to the shore and the wind carried old stories through the trees, there lived a young man named Naoki. He was known for his insight, his sharp mind, and his gentle presence. People came to him with problems, seeking advice or comfort, and he gave it, always, patiently, thoughtfully, without hesitation. But what no one knew was this: Naoki had a secret. It wasn't dark or dangerous. It wasn't shameful or illegal. It was something simpler, but far more powerful. It was a dream, a quiet vision he held in his heart, about the kind of life he wanted to build, the kind of man he wanted to become. He had shared it once, years ago, with someone he trusted. He had spoken it out loud with bright eyes and a hopeful voice. And what he got in return was laughter. Not support, not belief, just doubt, dismissal. A joke that pierced deeper than he expected. Since that day, Naoki had learned to keep certain things to himself, not because he was afraid, but because he had realized something not many people understand. Some things lose their strength when they are exposed too soon, and some dreams are meant to grow in silence. Naoki spent more and more time alone after that day, not out of bitterness, not out of fear, but because solitude had become the only space where his ideas still felt alive. He still listened to others, still helped when they came to him. But his own hopes, his own visions, he let them grow in silence, like seeds under the soil, untouched by wind or judgment. One afternoon, as the tide crept in and the sky turned silver with low clouds, Naoki sat on the edge of a cliff near the sea. Beside him sat an old monk, a traveler who passed through the town once every few years. They didn't speak for a while, just watched the ocean breathe. Then the monk asked, "Why are your eyes always quiet, even when your heart is not?" Naoki turned to him, surprised. The monk smiled. "I see things most people miss." Naoki hesitated, then finally said, "Because I learned that not everything needs to be shared." The monk nodded slowly, like someone hearing a truth long forgotten. "There is power in silence," he said. "Not all silence is emptiness. Some silence is protection." Naoki looked out at the water, where distant waves folded quietly into themselves. "I used to think honesty meant telling everything," he said. "But I've learned that what's sacred doesn't always need to be spoken." The monk closed his eyes, as if savoring those words. "Some truths," he said, "become stronger when they are guarded. Some dreams become real only when kept out of reach of other people's noise." Naoki didn't answer. He didn't need to. He had learned. When you speak too soon, people don't just hear your words, they place their fears on them. Years earlier, before the quiet, before the wisdom, Naoki had been different. He used to share everything, his goals, his ideas, his plans. If something inspired him, he'd speak of it with passion, with fire in his chest. But slowly, something changed. The more he shared, the more he noticed how others reacted, not always with support, but with skepticism. "You think that'll work? Sounds risky. You should be more realistic." At first, he tried to explain himself. He fought for his vision. But the more he explained, the more doubt seemed to take root, not just in them, but in himself. He began questioning his path, not because it was wrong, but because it was unprotected. That's when he realized, words are bridges, but they're also doors. And sometimes, when you open that door too soon, what comes through isn't encouragement, it's noise. Noise that buries clarity, noise that weakens conviction. So he stopped sharing. Not with everyone, just with those who didn't know how to listen without reshaping his voice. He learned to build quietly, to protect his dreams like fire in the wind. And in that silence, his vision grew stronger, not louder, but deeper. Now, When people asked, "What are you working on these days?" he would smile and say, "Still figuring it out." Because not every masterpiece needs to be announced while it's still a sketch. If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing and tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next. One evening, as the lanterns flickered in the wind and the town slipped into its usual quiet, Naoki was visited by his childhood friend, Yuto. They hadn't seen each other in years, but the bond between them had once been unshakable. Over warm tea and old memories, the conversation drifted to life, to purpose, to the future. Yuto leaned forward, his voice curious. "You always used to dream out loud. Now, you're quiet. What are you working on these days?" Naoki smiled softly. "Still working, still dreaming, just differently now." Yuto raised an eyebrow. "Why don't you share any more?" Naoki looked down at his cup, the steam curling like a question with no easy answer. "It's not that I don't trust you," he said gently. "It's that I've learned how fragile a vision can be when it's exposed too early." Yuto seemed hurt. "So you hide things now?" Naoki shook his head. "No, I guard them, the way you'd guard something that's still growing." There was a long pause between them. Then Naoki added, "When a tree is young, it needs shelter from wind, not applause." Yuto leaned back, thoughtful. "I always thought sharing made things real," he said. Naoki nodded. "Sometimes it does, but other times, it invites others to shape it before it's ready." He didn't speak with defensiveness, just calm clarity, the kind that only comes after many internal battles. And in that moment, Yuto saw it. Not just what Naoki had said, but what he hadn't. That silence wasn't distance, it was protection. After Yuto left that night, Naoki walked to the edge of the sea. The moon lit the surface like silver glass, and the waves moved slow, as if listening. He sat on the rocks, quiet, thoughtful. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was I wrong to keep things to myself? But then he remembered all the times he had shared too soon, how fragile his confidence had felt afterward, how easily one comment, one raised eyebrow, had shaken everything he'd been building inside. He closed his eyes. In that moment, he knew something few people ever come to understand. Some parts of your journey don't need to be shared, not because they're shameful, but because they're sacred. There are thoughts that lose their purity once spoken, ideas that grow best in the dark, like roots beneath the soil. Naoki had dreams still, bigger than ever. Visions of a life few would understand. But he no longer needed applause to believe in them. He no longer craved validation to feel he was on the right path. He had learned, if you let everyone see your blueprint, they'll start editing it. But if you keep it close, you get to build it as it was meant to be. Not louder, not faster, just real. If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing and tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next. As the first light of morning stretched across the horizon, Naoki stood barefoot in the sand, watching the ocean breathe. No crowd, no noise, no one to impress, just presence. He had not reached the end of his journey. In truth, he was only beginning. But now, he walked forward without needing to announce every step, because he understood something most never do. When you keep something to yourself, not out of fear, but out of respect, it grows deeper roots. You don't have to explain everything. You don't owe the world your process. You can build quietly, love privately, and dream silently until the time is right. And when that time comes, the world won't see something half-formed. It will witness something complete. As the waves touched his feet, Naoki smiled to himself, not because he had something to show, but because he finally understood the value of not showing it. Have you ever kept something to yourself? Not out of fear, but because it mattered too much to risk being misunderstood? Tell me in the comments. Your silence might hold more power than you think.